At the ripe old age of 42 years, I decided to start an education company because I think there was a problem that needed to be solved. It's pretty clear at this point, like I should not be doing things that are like frivolous things. Like when I saw that, it was like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and Willy Wonka. You walk in and you see the streams of chocolate and the Oompa Loompas and the gigantic oversized lollipops. For me, seeing that beige 512K Macintosh. Welcome to the Bold Shift Club. Let me do it again. Welcome to the Bold Shift Club. Let's make some shift happen.
Hello everyone, welcome to the start of another amazing series. And now this one is called the Bold Shift Club for many reasons, but one of them is because we live in a world with no more gatekeepers. And you're going to learn a lot more about what we mean by that in a few seconds. But I'm your host, Arcui Usoara. You might have heard of me in other platforms, and we're joined by another amazing guest whose reputation precedes him in more than one way. I allow him to introduce himself in a moment, but the aim of this series is not just to be a podcast, not just to be able to have conversations, but to enable people to be able to do anything they truly desire, something that they find that's going to drive them forward, filling them with passion, and they have been hesitant towards it for some or the other reason. The funny thing is, we live in a world where innovation keeps taking place on a constant basis. There's so many things you can do, and any and everything around the world is now acting as a catalyst for innovation. You can initiate anything and you can overcome anything if you're willing to do that. The aim of this podcast is to be able to inspire you by telling you authentic stories of how people have been able to make shifts in their journey at various points of their life, not just in their business, but in their personal life, in their journey, in one way or the other, and how it has enabled them to live the life they want to lead while they inspire others at it. I'm your host, Arcui Usoara, the founder of Icarus, a global brand strategy consultancy that mainly works with forward-thinking entrepreneurs who are truly community-led and want to create something that will uplift their community of users. But it didn't always start like that. I never really had a plan to start an agency. I knew I didn't want to be just like any other ad agency. I didn't even think I would become an agency owner or now a fractional consultant. I just wanted to create things that will allow people to express themselves in the best of ways. But that didn't happen because I felt like I was surrounded by a lot of limitations around me. I wanted to pivot, I wanted to thrive, and I kept doing that. But sometimes you just need to meet someone who can actually allow you to show that, yeah, there's a whole other world out there and a whole other dynamic. And I'm very proud to be able to have that person here on this podcast today, mainly because I sent him a message, and I'm pretty sure he might not remember it, but I told him this after we started chatting a bit, that one day we'll have a conversation together and we'll keep going from there and forward. And that person is Chris Dell. I met Chris a while ago through his YouTube channel when Futur was just thriving. And through everything Chris has provided out for us, it has allowed me to change the perspective on design, what design can be, and the impact it can create, to even enable me to be a thought leader in certain ways and guide many creative professionals out there. So without any further ado, I welcome Chris Dell. Chris, I would love for you to be able to introduce yourself because nobody else can do it better than you.
Hi, Arcui. Thanks for having me here. Hi, everybody. My name is Chris Dell. I'm a loud introvert. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I'm a recovering graphic designer. And at the ripe old age of 42 years, I decided to start an education company because I think there was a problem that needed to be solved. So I have this really big mission, which is to teach 1 billion people how to make a living doing what they love. And I'm on that journey right now with you, right here.
Yeah, I love that, Chris. And I remember I've heard the story, I've seen the videos, and I remember the conversation you had with your wife when you were coming back from Art Center and you realized that there's so much more you can do, and how you reconnected with Jose and how that led down to so many amazing things. The reason why most creatives now see you as a point of epiphany, someone who can help them make that pivot internally. But if you can get a bit more deeper into this, I know you have shared your story of how you got into design when you once went to meet someone and then you saw all of this amazing things about the old school design, which not a lot of people do anymore, but it is still amazing. But I would like to get into a bit more in terms of what made you decide to make something that was going to last away from just your work for now. What helped you make that mindset pivot that changed the way you look at yourself, the life you lead now? What allowed you to do that?
At which point do you want me to tell that pivot? Because my life is full of pivots.
I would like to start with the first one, the one where you started to look at yourself from a different perspective. where you wanted to be more than just another person?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I don't think this story is uncommon to anybody that's a first generation immigrant or part of like an Asian or East Asian parents, which is they want the best for you. They want you to succeed in life. They don't want you to suffer. So they think of like what paths that you could take. And they're very involved in the development of their children, who they see, who they hang out with, what they do, what they're studying, and they're pushing really hard. And it's driven by this belief that education is the path forward. And so they generally prioritize education as the most important thing. And my parents had sacrificed a lot to escape Vietnam out of communism and come to the United States to make a better life for themselves and for their children, myself and my two brothers. So it's pretty clear at this point, like I should not be doing things that are like frivolous, things like drawing and reading comics and playing video games, things that I enjoyed doing a lot as a child. And I'll tell you this little story. It's kind of I think kind of make sense. And there's a story I've not told before. So I was hanging out with my sister-in-law and my brother, and we were talking, and her mom, my sister-in-law's mom, she was telling a story about how one of her nieces was going to graduate from a school in engineering, and it's what her dad wanted her to do so badly. And she was going through it, and she goes, I don't really enjoy this. I think I want to quit. And her dad says, you cannot quit. I forbid you to quit. You must do this thing. So she decides to go ahead and stay in school, and she finishes and gets her engineering degree. And then she graduates and gets a really good job, and she's working in the industry and doing really well. But 5 years into it, she reached out and she's like, you know what? This gives me no joy whatsoever. I'm going to go do something totally different. And she goes back and gets her MBA in business. And we were just looking at each other like the variance of what our options are as children of Asian parents is so tiny. Her rebellious act was not to do engineering, but to be like a hedge fund manager or a financial analyst or something. It's like, that's not going too far off the spectrum there. Her act of rebellion was, well, I'll show you, I'm going to be a really rich hedge fund manager. It wasn't like, I'm going to join a punk rock band and get piercings. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for me, it's like growing up with that kind of mindset and that dogma, like this is how you have to do it. This is the way it's always going to be done. It was suffocating. And I, as a child, saw myself doing things different than other people. I was reading fashion magazines like GQ. I was studying interior design magazines and lifestyle magazines like Sunset and Decor. I was just looking at all these things like, why am I drawn to this? Why am I reading comic books and studying the panels and reading the ads and looking at the words and the typography and the design? This was my world, but I suppressed all that. But fate would intervene for me, right? Fate would intervene in a couple different ways. I took a commercial art class in high school, and my teacher asked me, what are your plans after high school? Because you have a gift for this. And I thought he was just pandering to me. I thought it was the job of an art instructor is to tell you what you think you want to hear. But I was like, I don't think so, because I don't want to be broke. That's what I thought in my mind. So I just smiled and walked away. And it wasn't until I got a job at a silk training place that I then met the very first graphic designer I ever met in my life. His name is Dean Walker. And I was sent over to his house to pick up some typesetting. And I didn't even know what that term meant. And when I went into his home and walked into his studio, I saw a different world. Now, for those of you guys that cannot imagine this, now you described it as old school. It's only old school now, but back then that's called new school because he was using desktop publishing tools that very few people had access to that were super expensive. So he was on the bleeding edge of what is now modern contemporary graphic design and desktop publishing.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, it was like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and Willy Wonka. You walk in and you see the streams of chocolate and the Oompa Loompas and the gigantic oversized lollipops. For me, seeing that beige 512K Macintosh with the monochrome blue screen and the giant laser printer and the markers that he had on his drafting tables and all these tools, the triangles, the T-square, I was just in design heaven. And I saw this and he confirmed what I had hoped to be true, which was this is how he makes a living. And so from that point forward, I'm like, this is it. This is it for me. All my life, I've been telling myself a lie that this is not possible. I didn't know the words. I didn't know that someone was doing it. And here he was right in our neighborhood doing this thing in this kind of nondescript home. And that changed my life.
It's so funny that sometimes the unexpected of things can play such a huge role. And for me, that was you and I don't know if you remember this, but we had a conversation very early on when I started, and I had sent you my work and we were talking about it. And you told me that what I'm doing involves a bit of strategy. And I was like, what's that? And you told me you sent over the future video about what strategies and the difference between order taking and being someone who's actually involved in strategy. And that played a huge role. And it's the unexpected of pivots that play that role to you. Because I thought I'd be a designer. I'd be someone who'll be stuck in branding. And then I met you, then I met Jose, and we had conversations, and that allowed me to become a brand strategist. And through that, I met Errol, and he told me I should get into coaching. And I was like, really? I should get into coaching? And now I'm coaching people. And every now and then you meet someone who you see doing something that you always wanted to do, but you never thought was possible. And just getting some sort of acknowledgement or just seeing someone do that can play a huge role in allowing you to be able to just change the entirety of the perspective. And doesn't need to be like an year-long journey, because sometimes just seeing someone do something different the way you wanted it to be, or at least you hoped for it to be, can play a huge role. So with that, I would like to ask you, when you decided to get more into coaching and decided the school and then the future, did you ever feel that it's not going where it is supposed to be? It's not going where you wanted it to be. Did you ever feel the hesitance to just leave it and go back? Because a few years ago, you made the announcement that your main priority is now the future. I don't see you talk a lot more about blind, and blind is in a way just stopped at the moment. But did you ever feel the hesitance that this is not something I'm supposed to do, and maybe there's another way out, or maybe that's something else that I'm supposed to be doing, maybe focusing more on the design aspects?
Not with the future. And there's a difference between hesitancy and having setbacks and obstacles. And there's a big difference, okay? So for when you say hesitancy, it's like self-doubt, like this is not the right path. And I've never had that thought as I'm 8 or 9 years into the future and doing education work. The question that I had at the beginning was, when Jose and I started the company, it was called The School, and that was his company and his brand, and he was leading this because I was new to content creation, hosting content on YouTube, and making educational products and how to market them. I was in the service design business, so I was essentially a gun for hire, run through my company, which was a production and post-production company. So we shot the live action, and then we did all the post work, the editing, the visual effects. So we're pretty used to and understanding how to work with clients that can sometimes be difficult, where the stakes are really high. So the average project for us would probably be $250,000, $250,000. A big budget for us would be $600,000 or $700,000. Low budget would be $100K, and that's where we're used to working. So we would get an order, and we would bid on it, and we would do our best to win it. And oftentimes we would win, then we would do the assignment, and we would repeat that process over and over. And I did that for 20 years. So shifting into content creation was brand new for me. There was a lot of question marks. I didn't know what I didn't know, so I had to trust my friend to lead the way. But a year into it, I started to see, like, I think I know what I'm doing now, and I want to do things a certain way. And when you have a partner, there's always compromise. There's a quote behind me. Let me just read it real quick. It says, "A good compromise is when both parties are dissatisfied." And that's a quote from Larry David, right? So it's like, I'm not happy. I don't think he's happy. And he was the CEO. And so we kind of made an agreement, because I think I'm a pretty good operator. Like, I know how to run a company. And he saw himself as the visionary officer, which is totally fine by me, because he had a lot of big ideas that we needed to execute on. But I think he was uncomfortable with allowing me to run the company. And it boiled over at one point when I was the CEO and he was telling the team to do different things. It's like, what are you doing here? I thought we agreed that this was okay. And he goes, oh, I guess I wasn't okay with that. Well, that bothers me. It's like, if we agree, and what are we if we're not good to our word? And so we have to agree to this. And so I can see that he was wrestling with this mightily. And I move really quickly. I don't always ask for consensus. Actually, I rarely ask for consensus. I have an idea. I tell the team, let's do this. And the team marches forward with me. And that's what I need. Whereas Jose, much more egalitarian, kind of flat management style, wants everybody bought in on all the decisions all the time. And that's great to a degree, but we don't get a whole lot done. So that wasn't about hesitancy. That was just about a disagreement in management style. I'm not saying mine is superior to his or his is superior to mine. It's just I need to run a company a certain way, because if we don't get results, then I'm not interested in doing this anymore.
Yeah.
So I asked him, I have a lot of hobbies and interests. I love many things, reading comic books, going to Comic-Con, going on fishing adventures and backpacking with my family. I already run a business. I don't want to run a second business and for it not to be a real business, because right now it's run like a hobby. And I think his timeline was very different than mine. And so eventually we came to a point in which we could not agree anymore. So we had to split the company apart. And so I knew this was the path forward. I just wasn't sure if this was the right partner to do it with. And to this day, I'm genuinely kind of sad for both of us, because I think it could have been a beautiful collaboration between two leaders in a space, but we just couldn't agree enough to compromise. And so that's where we're at.
Thank you for sharing that. I know sometimes the relationships are very hard to manage, and we say this in our contracts. It's the very first thing you'll read any client that comes to us, that we hold the right to end a relationship with you work-wise if we feel that it's affecting our personal relationship. Because for us, we try to maintain a friendship with our clients. We try to be in a relationship where we can count on them and they can count on us as friends, not just as businesses. And so we say that over there. And for some, it's very weird, like, why are you treating it in this way? But for the ones we have on retainer for a very consistent amount of time, they know this and they value that, because they were our friends before they became our clients. And that's a personal philosophy of mine. I say that instead of trying to expand out of your friend zone and be like, I don't want any more friends and referrals, I say expand your friend zone so that everybody who you work with is kind of your friend first. Because according to me, it's like when people want to start something random, when they want to start something new, they seek to their roommate, they seek to their best friends. They're like, hey, I would like to start something with you. I feel like we align there. And when there's that amount of trust, it's easier for people to work with you. So they look for their best friends instead of being like, let me find some random person online that I can work with. So we have always believed in building that relationship forward. And yeah, I think it's very delicate when that conversation has to take place. But to be able to manage that plays a huge role, because you don't want having to sustain a relationship affect your entirety of the vision, because I think that can backfire in a very bad way, kind of like to what you quoted. If both of you are compromising, then that's the best compromise and both of you are dissatisfied. It's kind of like being in a relationship that will slowly end up affecting other things around you and your ability to even be able to trust someone.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I would like to get a bit more into your mission, with a mission of coaching 1 billion people. Do you ever imagine what would that be once you have achieved that? Like, I know you have a counter on the Futur's website, but what would you do on the day that happens, the day you see that, like, yes, it's crossed 1 billion?
I think people underestimate how difficult that task is. And the reason why I said it at 1 billion is because I'm not sure that's achievable in one lifetime. Yeah. I like to have really big, hairy, audacious goals, because when you have those goals, it forces you to make different decisions, to make big decisions. Yeah. So for example, I'm pretty guarded about how I spend my time and who I speak to. So I'm constantly getting requests for like, hey, appear on this podcast. And I have to say no. I have to keep saying no, because the size of the audience that this person brings, and it's not about them, it's just that their audience, the metrics don't work for me. Because if I'm trying to impact 1 billion people, I have to make decisions that affect thousands of people at the same time, not just 5 people, 100 people, or 200 people, because I'll never get to that number. Yeah. Now we underestimate that, because I think we're close to like 8 billion people on planet Earth. That means 1 in 8 people are going to be impacted directly or indirectly by the content from the future. And 1 in 8 people are not creative. 1 in 8 people are not designers. 1 in 8 people are not entrepreneurs. And so we underestimate that. So I'm not worried about the day in which it's like Thanos after he does the snap, he sits on the cliff and it's like the work is done and now I have no purpose left in my life. It's not like that. It's not going to be a snap. It's going to be a long, arduous process, many learnings, many successes, hopefully. I know for sure a lot of failures. And so I'm mostly focused on what I can see in front of me in the next 3, 6, 9 months and the next year or two. And that's all I can do. And I'll just give this piece of advice to people who are listening to this or watching this later, is that When you have a big goal, people tend to obsess too much about the goal versus the process that you have to go through to get to the goal. You have to fundamentally change. You have to change the people that you surround yourself with. You have to change yourself and the process. You have to, the processes, you have to design different systems, and you have to expand, because no person arrives at such a lofty goal by being the exact same person they were when they started. And so I like doing that. I want to focus on what I have to do today, the tangible things. Otherwise, we just stay in this dreaming state and we feel like the goal is too far away and we'll never get there. And so then we don't take action to lead to positive results that eventually draw us closer to our goals.
I really love that, mainly because we got a lot more into making the shift we need to, because it's very much clear that the person you want to be or the goal you want to get towards, you'll not be the same person. You'll have the same desires maybe, and a lot of things are going to change. And I have a quote of mine, which is, remember the reason for the choices we make, because a lot of times things don't work out the way you want it to. Sometimes they work out in the best of ways, but the journey is ever changing. We are dynamic beings and we'll go through a lot of changes. And a lot of times people end up regretting how things turn up if they don't succeed. And they end up being very happy and excited when they do turn up as they wanted it to be. But a lot of things change. We change as people. I am not the person I was 7 years ago when I started freelancing. I am not the person I was even a year ago when I made a shift in my own journey from running just an agency to being a consultant. And I know you have made a lot of changes as well. So what do you have to say when you think back to how much you have changed in the journey? Do you notice those changes? Do you notice the differences in the way you are perceived or the way you want to be perceived, and everything you have changed personally?
Yeah, I measure my life in the change that I've been able to make within myself from days ago, from weeks ago, and from a year ago. I would be really dissatisfied with myself if I looked back in a year and said, I can't see the difference. And I don't mean just the difference in what I know, but my tastes, my wisdom, hopefully, the people I've surrounded myself with, the adventures I've gone on, the failures I've made. And the biggest insult that you can probably say to me is, Chris, you haven't changed at all. Like, I'm sorry. That's terrible. I think people mean that as a compliment. Like we think of you a certain way and you're always that same person. And I don't think they mean literally. They're just like the positive parts that we like about you haven't changed. You haven't let success or money or being famous or whatever it is change you. And I'm like, I get that, but I actually want to change. I change all the time. And you can see that I change in the way that I just appear, my physical self, like working on my health, my fitness, changing my personal style, the aesthetic, and then also the people I surround myself with. And so I look at it, it's like, if you're not moving upward, if you're just staying static, you're moving backwards, because the world moves forward without you. And so the worst thing that you can do is just be exactly the same way that you are. So we try different ideas, we try different business models, and we keep expanding. I get to talk to different people, I learn different things, and that's how I measure my life. The difference between the old me versus the new me.
I love that. And that is very much true with what you said, that I feel like if you're not changing, then you're settling in the dust of what will remain. You're not staying the same. You're in turn actually just settling in what is being left behind. And one thing obviously hasn't changed that much, which is your hat and your aesthetic. I've seen this hat a lot nowadays, with the yellow stripes, and even the shirt with the yellow stripes and everything. But yeah, the hats have always been around, from God as a designer to multiple variations. And it was a hat that first captured my attention when I came across the Futur. I'd like to share a small story over here, which is, I remember I was looking like, what can I do to change the visualization of what designers? What can I do to actually create more strategic solutions? Because for me, the most important thing is to be able to create solutions that carry a bit of my client's personality and also speaks to their community of users and shows something that's different, shows something that is true to them. And I was looking around, and that's when I first came across the Futur. I don't remember the individual's name, but it was when you're preparing someone from the Young Guns to come visit the studio. And that's when it caught my eye, because firstly, no offense, I thought Futur, this channel is just some young creatives who are coming together and they're just doing regular content creator stuff. And I was like, okay, let's just watch it, what these guys are doing. I was like, let's see how they're growing and everything. Maybe they'll reveal something. But the more I watched it, I realized that this is not the same. This isn't either creatives that don't go that deep into creativity and the challenges and the research and the strategies. Neither are these guys just content creators that have gotten famous through the just creating content and everything. But these guys are someone who are truly dedicated to design. For them, design means a whole other thing. And I remember seeing the posters, the whole typography and all of these other posters that were there, and the team. And I've seen the journey of multiple people joining the team. The way the Future used to be, it used to be more like a radio station setup where we'd see Ricky and all the other people, and then the entirety of the team has changed. And we keep seeing that. Like, if you could ever make a GIF of how things have changed, like how the suits has with the Pearson Spectre logo constantly changing, the Future team constantly changing with different people coming across and everything. And even with the people who have been around for a while, there have been a lot of shifts. There have been a lot of changes internally with who they are and the things they're focusing on and the impact. Is there something that you wish hadn't changed?
No, I don't spend any time thinking about that. I have to tell you, because first of all, wishing for things is not the same as doing things.
Yeah.
And the team will always change, and that's then just me to accept the way things are. And with each person who joins the team, we gain something. With each person that leaves, we lose something. But I think that we always gain more than what we lose. And I also want I only want for people who really feel like they're moving forward in their career, their life, and their knowledge by being with us. And if they find better opportunities to make more money, to learn, to go on a different adventure, I'm really genuinely just happy for them. I don't want anyone to be beholden to me to say, like, I owe you the rest of my life. I'm like, no, you don't. You just owe me the time in which we're paying you to be here. And if it no longer fulfills you with joy and you don't feel purpose and fulfilled, then you shouldn't be here. And I shouldn't be here. So if I wake up one morning and say, you know what, this is not what I want to do anymore, I'll just shut the company down. I'll sell it. I'll do something different. And I think we have to get in touch with what it is that we want in our lives. And if I give myself that kind of freedom, then I would want it for my team as well. And so I'm happy for every person that comes into the Future to help us do what we do. And I'm also happy for them when they find better opportunities. And I think that's what happens ultimately. I think a lot of people get very selfish and self-centered when they say, well, when you join the company, it's a lifetime sentence. We're married forever. No, we're not. And because when you hit tough financial times, you lay your team off and you don't think too much about that. But when they have better opportunities, people get really nasty about that. They threaten people. They make them feel guilty over this. I'm like, I know what you're here to say. I'm okay. Go ahead and tell me, because I feel like I know what you're going to say. And they're like, okay, Chris, I'm so sorry. I decided to take another job, or I'm leaving for different reasons. I said, well, good luck to you. Please don't be a stranger. And I think in that way, I have really good relationships with the people who have left the company. I don't have such great relationship with people I have to fire, unfortunately. But the people who quit, I'm like, okay, we still good. We'll go have lunch, and we talk to each other, and we send each other messages, and I like that. And to this day, though you have not seen Ricky or Jonah in a while, they're both getting in touch with me. We have lunch from time to time. We meet up at events and spaces, and it's really neat. I like that. I still have a relationship with Matthew and Greg and other people who have come and gone.
Yes, I really love that. And there are a lot of similarities with the approaches we have in that aspect, mainly because I think with the fields that we are in, creativity and everything that's going around nowadays, with people starting companies in the Web3 space a year ago, and now people getting into AI. While some are obviously doing it for the trend and just for the sake of capitalizing on an untapped market or a new market, a lot of people end up joining these individuals and businesses because of the similarities in the vision and mission. They feel aligned to this mission, and hence they're joining it. There's a bit of purpose that's involved. They're not just joining it for the money, but they're joining a particular company. They're looking out for these people and opportunities because they want to play a role in shaping it, but also be shaped with it. And I think we need to be very open to the conversation of being able to build an ecosystem. You're not just building something of your own, because this gets into the culture and the brand we create, that you build with your people and they're building with you. And everything that my agency is and everything I've done, I have done because of the people that have joined me in this journey, that have left me, and that will be joining me. Because a part of them stays through the impact, a part of them joins us, a part of them leaves us, and it shapes everything that we turn out to be. The tree is shaped with various curves and hinges and everything, but it is a tree because of all the different things that come together.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that always plays a huge reminder for being an entrepreneur is the personal life and the challenges. And for me, stress, anxiety, and burnout are things that I deal with on very weird basis. I have a very weird relationship with them because I used to ignore them and now I'm very prone to them. I try my best to not burn out. I try to set things in motion, and even the anxiety and the relationships, because they end up influencing you in ways you don't expect, and then they play a huge role. How do you deal with the anxiety that comes in the weirdest of ways, the most unexpected ways, but it ends up taking a toll on everything you do around you? And how do you notice it when it's happening, when you don't realize it and then it strikes it at, okay, this is not what it's supposed to feel like? Because the feeling, that's the thing. Because I've been in meetings, in the strategy meetings, and I'm known to be the guy who makes people feel that aha moment, makes them cry. Like, I'm very proud of that. Like, most of my clients end up leaving meetings crying, and not in a bad way, but in the epiphanetic way. And I think it plays a very huge role in knowing how things are going to be. But when you feel that feeling is not what it's supposed to be, the feeling is off. So I'd love for you to hear on that.
Yeah, I'm pretty good at compartmentalizing my emotions and tasks that I have to do. Because as you can imagine, running a company, a multi-million-dollar company with all the different things that are on my plate, you can easily kind of feel overwhelmed and anxious. And so oftentimes when my wife looks at my calendar, it freaks her out because there's just so many things that are there. And she will say, hey, aren't you supposed to be writing your talk for that next event? I'm like, don't remind me of that. This is all I can process right now. And I'm a kind of like a 24-hour, 48-hour notice kind of guy. I'm only aware of the things I have to do tomorrow and the day after, and not much after that. So people often ask me, hey, aren't you going to this thing in 2 months? I'm like, I don't know. And they know more of my calendar and my schedule than I do at points. Because if I try to look at all of what I have to do, it becomes so overwhelming that I just don't want to do it anymore. And I listen to the cues that my body will send to me when my heart is elevated, when I'm starting to feel like kind of like tingling nerves. I know that something's going on, and it's because I have too many things to do. Yeah. I have to check in with myself. So I'm self-aware that I'm like, oh my God, my body's telling me we're feeling stressed out right now. We're really anxious about all the things we have to get done. And so you can easily get into a state where you start to hyperventilate and you start to shut down intellectually, emotionally, psychologically. All those things start turning off and you're not going to perform at your best. This is problematic if you have to do something creative, clearly. So what I do is when I start to feel that level of anxiety reach to a boiling point, I just sit down and like, take a deep breath, clear your desk, write down the 3 things you need to do today. Just what are the top 3 priorities? And let's just work on that. And in this way, I'm able to slowly control the anxiety that I'm feeling and make progress on the things I have to get done. And when you get done with that first thing, it feels so good. You can almost immediately feel your anxiety go down. And that dopamine hit that you get from, yeah, I got that done. That's pretty good. And I think I can do the second thing. And then the third thing. And then all of a sudden, I still have hours left in the day in my work time. And I'm like, what else can I do? And then I have to just make this decision. And this is what I'm going to just caution people against to avoid burnout. If you've done your 3 things, that's usually good enough. And you need to just take a break. You reward yourself not with more work, but you reward yourself with some off or downtime to just recharge your batteries. And I think that's important. So for me, it's pretty clear. I grab a book, I go upstairs and I watch some TV, and oftentimes I'll read the book while watching TV, and I'll just take a nap. That's my reward.
I love that. I think the beauty of it is that, first of all, it's going to be a very good real piece of content that I'll be editing later on, and this will be one of the clips that we'll be sharing and everything. But that's the thing, right? Like, most people, when they hear this part out in the podcast or the recording, they're like, all right, so finish the three things, then add the next three things. Add the next three things. Let the three things keep scrolling as if it's like a slider of notifications and you're just seeing the first few ones and you're like constantly scrolling them out. And you end up, that's actually the bigger cause of burnout, because then what's happening is that you realize that your tasks are never ending and everything around you is. And the worst feeling for me would be that people around me are learning to enjoy without me in the things I enjoy doing with them, the things I love doing. And if people were involved in that and now they're able to do that and they don't need me around to be able to have a good time, especially the people I truly care about, the people I want to spend my time with. And I personally went through that a while ago with my own family and my dogs as well. My dogs realized that, oh, they don't need that to play around. They don't need that to have fun. They can be weird by themselves. They can play around with everybody else. And for them, it kind of sticks around now. And that's constantly a reminder for me, because like dogs work on sire bond. Like once they imprint on someone very well, then they look out for them. And I miss that chance with two of my dogs. I know that I've missed it because they used to be very close to me when they were young. They would come sleep with me and I was so involved in something else. And that wasn't even work. That's the worst part. It wasn't even the work part. It wasn't something I wasn't supposed to be involved in. But the toll it took on me in the agency, in my impact, but on the relationships, it hits me now. And so I've built up all of these different things around me that enable me to just stop and go do something else. And I completely agree with you on the whole thing with talks and everything. Like sometimes, like nowadays, I'm in a position where I just like to go for talks when they happen. Like I know what I'm going to be talking about and I pick topics I can talk about, so I don't have to prepare much aside from like a basic deck. So I can just go and be myself and I'm able to deliver that value. Because I think when there's so much to do at once, you end up taking a toll on everything around you, not just with one task, but all the other tasks and everything.
Yeah, you're talking about dogs, right? Your two dogs?
Yeah.
So who did they imprint on?
So one of them has imprinted on my sister and the other one has imprinted on my mom. While they both come to me when they're scared, because initially when I rescued them, they came to our house, but they were still rescued and everything. They knew me because I'm a dog rescuer and everything. So they connected very well with me. But aside from when they're scared, they don't really come to me that much unless like they're tired or they're missing dad. They prefer that safety or the fun and everything. They have that with their own person now.
Yeah.
So when it comes to, we are at the end of this amazing conversation, but when it comes to seeing, and by the way, congratulations on your son. I saw the Father's Day post that you had shared and everything, and I know it must be amazing. What would you do if someone came to you very close to you and they were unable to feel what they loved? They were unable to be in touch with what they loved. How would you help them or just guide them in terms of what they can do in terms of being able to either reconnect with that part of themselves or be able to just find what it is?
Before I can help somebody, they need to ask me for help. I don't love giving people advice just because I think I have an answer. And so oftentimes people tell me their problems. I just sit there and listen. That's all I do. And they look at me like, are you going to say something? And I'm like, no. If you want advice, if you want help, you'll ask for it.
Yeah.
And I don't want to presume that somebody's telling me a story because they want my advice or my input. In fact, when people do so and you give unsolicited advice, it can be very insulting. They can feel like you're not listening, you're not hearing them. And this is the mistake that I find that more men do than women. But men tend to think if somebody comes to you and tells you a problem, that your primary responsibility is not to listen, but to give advice. And I think that's a classic mistake. And hopefully I've learned from that in the years that I've been on this planet. So if somebody approaches me and is like, Chris, I really need your input on something. I want to get aligned with what it is that I love. Now, you would think that, okay, it's pretty straightforward. I can help you. But then I also think, well, what decisions have you made thus far that move you away from the alignment of what it is that you want to do? And you've made that decision. And if you're the architect of that, then you can also fix that problem. And so oftentimes, it's just a mindset. I don't want to say just, it's a mindset issue. It's a limiting belief about why they can or can't do something, or they're operating on a timeline that's not real or not real for them. I found what I loved when I was 16, 17 years old, when I met this graphic designer. And then I got an opportunity to create a motion design company because that's what I wanted to do at that time. And then I got into brand strategy because I felt like that's the next evolution for me as a creative person. And then finally, as an educator, to create content via social media. That's what I want to do. And those are pivots that I've made. And I'm constantly recalibrating, realigning with myself. I don't want to sit there and become a victim of my own circumstances. My business coach, Kieran McLaren, my former business coach, he would always say to me, Chris, there's no victims in life. There's just volunteers. Are you a victim or are you a volunteer in this situation? So I used to complain to him and say, oh, I'm not quite sure why Mary or Bob keeps doing X, Y, Z, and it's really irritating me. And he would let me vent for a little while, and then he'd turn to me and say, and who hired this person? Who allows this person to continue to behave in this way without being corrected? So in a way, who's encouraging this behavior to continue? And all those answers were me, and me. So we like to complain. We like to point our fingers at other people and say, it's your problem, it's your fault. This has nothing to do with me. But I was reading Darren Hardy's book many years ago. He wrote the book, The Compound Effect. He talks about this beautiful concept about just making small, smart decisions and taking action every day to lead to amazing results. But then the book, he says, if you get nothing from this book, the one thing I want you to take away is to take 100% accountability or responsibility for your life. That everything that happens to you and for you is 100% your fault and your responsibility. If you can understand that, your whole life will change. So many of us think, oh, it's somebody else's fault. So this person who comes to me, who's asking for advice, they're not really looking for advice most of the time. They're not really looking for help. They're just looking for someone to listen to them so they can complain about how the world and their circumstances are stacked against them. So when they first realize it is my decision, it's my fault, it's my timeline, it's my either result of making good decisions or the result of me making bad decisions, then the real work can begin. And it's not because there's a lack of information, like how do I get more aligned with what it is I love? Well, stop doing the things that you don't love and do more of the things that you do love. But I won't make money, but my parents won't be happy, but I'll fail and people will criticize me. Those are all things that you have to come to resolve, and that's got very little to do with me.
I love that, because I say this to my community of creators that join me, and I asked them initially, like, why are you joining me? Why are you joining my program? Why are you getting coached by me? And it's mainly because either they see me as someone who has achieved something they want, or they want me to be a stepping stone for the next thing. And they know that through me, they can get to the next place. And I also tell them this, that I will support you in your journey as long as you can live with your decisions, because you need to make that decision. And if you can live with that, you have my support while you're going through this. If someone was going to start the future, something like the future, and for me, this is my personal philosophy, which is that everything, like, because I learned from you and you impacted my journey, all the 15,000 creators that I have impacted are towards that 1 billion. For me, it's because your impact transfers, your impact creates more impact. It's kind of like, what a ripple effect. You enable so many other creators, and through that, they enable other businesses, and they enable more creators as well. Some of us who end up going further into coaching and so many things, they end up doing that for other people. So if someone were to start the future, if they were like, hey, Chris, I love what you're doing with the future. And I know you're someone who doesn't look at others as competition, and rather you see that it's great that other people are doing this, because for you, it's more towards the cause and everything. But what would you guide someone if someone wanted to start something like the future, or even the blind? If someone wanted to start something like blind, what would you tell them? What would be the steps or something like that?
I wouldn't tell them anything. I mean, are they coming to me to ask for help in a blueprint on how to do what it is that I've done? Very few people actually do that. They just see it from afar, they collect the clues, and they try to do what they can. If they do it in earnest because they believe in the mission or what it is they're trying to do, I applaud them. If they're doing it because they're lazy and they just want a quick fix way to get more money, then I look down on them. And that's just pretty straightforward. There are several people who've joined my coaching community to see what our coaching community looks like, the structure and how I conduct things. And I'm super happy to see them. And I say, like, what is it that you want to learn from me? Because I will share it with you as an open book. They've made the decision to join the community, to be a part of it, to see what it's like firsthand. And then they can choose to stay or not. It doesn't really matter to me. And if they say, Chris, how do you solve this problem? How do you bring these people in? What is your secret sauce? I'm more than happy to share it with them. But like I said before, I don't like to give advice to people who haven't asked for it. And I want to make sure their intentions are good.
I have this perception of the future, which is that because I've seen the future for nearly 7 years now, I've been involved with the videos, some of your courses, and it's all out there. I think the reason even I invested, and even the people who invest in the future, some of them want more things. They want coaching and stuff like that. And I know you have different programs for that. But honestly, everything that you coach, it's already available. You're literally providing it out there on the YouTube channel. You just have to scrape through things, go through a couple of videos, and you'll get the answers you need. And I think a lot of people stick around to be able to support you further, to be able to contribute to this journey in one way or the other that they can, either by helping other community members. Because for me, the future is more about the community, the pro group. And every time I meet someone from the pro group and we connect over either the badge or just, the people like me and Melinda, we have conversations, and it's all of these other things. And for us, it's the community, because that's what we're paying for. Not so that we find the community, but so that we can contribute to the community. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things and one of the biggest things a business can ever do, is when the culture is so strong that people are coming for things that are out there. Like, obviously some people join because they think, oh yeah, this is the thing for me, but they don't do enough research, but then there's so many resources out there. Like, some of the courses as well, they're just relinking back to some of the YouTube lives that were done and some of the other videos that are available and everything. They're just compiled together. So it's all already out there. It's just that the people are there because they want to support the cause. They align with the cause so much, and they're just here for the community.
I agree with you. I mean, we often underestimate the power of community and what it means to be a part of one. And I think you astutely pointed out that it's not what I can take from the community, it's what I can take and give back. And I think that's a wonderful thing. And even the act of giving is a selfish act, because the more you give, the more fulfilled you feel and the more you learn about yourself. The one of the greatest things that I've done in terms of my own self-development is to become a teacher. You're like, wait, what? So when I teach something, I have to first organize my own thoughts, simplify complex concepts, and be able to explain it to someone that they can have some shot at figuring it out themselves. And then when I see them struggling, I give them some coaching to help them up. And in doing so, I learn even more about myself and the way that I think, and also how I can help other people that are in a similar situation. So the expression iron sharpens iron is often not applied to teacher-student relationship. It's more like two masters, two legends come together and we make each other stronger. But in my perspective, if I'm iron, then my students are iron. And when we slam against each other, we become more refined, we become sharper. And I like that. I like that when students are really driven to learn and are articulate enough to express where they're stuck and how they need help, then it makes me sharper. And then me helping them makes them sharper. And I love that whole process. We talk about the virtuous cycle, and that's definitely one of those virtuous cycles if it's done that way. If you approach teaching like, I have something to share, I'm just going to download it to you and good luck with you figuring it out, which sadly is how most teachers work. They're like, well, I'm the knowledge center. There's nothing left for me to improve or learn. Here it is. Take it or leave it. I'm done. Well, in that way, you're not really taking advantage of it. You're just saying it's sharp and I don't need any more sharpening. And eventually that blade gets really dull in all meanings of that word. Like I said, not sharp, and dull as in boring.
Yeah. It's so funny. I think a lot of people pay for courses, but they never use them. But people who pay for communities are more active because they know that the people are constantly going to be there. And of course, you can connect with everybody and then they just follow you on other social medias. You stay in touch with them. It's all there and everything. But I think people who pay for communities actually get the most out of things because there's that banter, there's that discussion, there's that mastermind that is being created, and where you learn from others, either from their challenges or their insights, from those banter of here's how I would do it, here's how I would do it, oh, here's how we can do it. And it's all these different things that come together, because in a course, a lot of people don't get to digest anything. And I've seen this with a lot of my community as well. They buy the courses, but the completion rate is like 15-20%. They go through one particular part that they found challenging, and then they go through it, and that's it. And a lot of people do this. A lot of people even buy courses and it's just left there. They feel like the resistance that they had for paying is gone. So they end up holding all the value to the resistance. And once the resistance is gone, it's nothing to them. But they're like, oh, well, if I paid for it, that means I must know it. I have implemented it already. And so there's a lot of those things that go around. And it's so beautiful that people are the biggest thing. And we keep coming back to this in different ways, that it's people, it's not business to business, it's people to people in so many different ways and everything. And what I'd like to ask you, I think we used to have this code that designed for people, but I think it should be designed with people. What are your thoughts on that?
If possible, not always possible. I'll give you an example where it's not possible. I'm working on a new fashion brand that's reflective of my tastes and things that I enjoy wearing and the visual aspects of it. I'm not going to design this with people, because if I'm the person who's saying this is my perspective on the world, it's not a shared perspective. And when you say design with people, you have to have people who are bringing something to the table, that are willing to commit to the process and their time and their energy and their talent and their creativity. And then you design with people. But most people aren't really that interested in you doing that with them. And that's okay. And we shouldn't expect that. So when I go to a hotel, I'm not really looking for them to design it with me. I want them to have figured out their business and create an experience that's pleasurable for me. If they do a good job, I'll be back. If they don't, I won't be back. If they do a really great job, I'll tell 10 friends. If they don't, I'll tell 10 more. And that's the way that works. And so some things, yes, you want to design with people. If you're in the strategic consulting space, you want to design with people, because ultimately the tools that you give to them need to be used by them. They need to be bought in on the process. And it's one of the valuable things I learned from my former business partner, Jose, which is when you create solutions like a website or an app and you don't involve the stakeholders, no matter how good the solution, there will always be resistance, because they feel like they weren't involved in the creative process. They didn't have a hand in it. So they're not bought in. The minute you enroll them in the process and you take in their feedback and their ideas and you all work together, they cannot hate the idea because it was their idea. You were just there to facilitate. So I think the context here does matter a lot.
That's really important, impactful, because to what you said in both with Jose as well as with hotels, because we have heard you talk about TW Hotel and we have seen the videos. That was like completely unprompted, but you talked about it. I don't think they ever even paid you for it or anything, but that's the thing, like when there is that, and obviously I completely agree with you that you can't always design with people. Sometimes it's going to be for you rather than, or just
Right.
for mindset of people instead of with everybody. But yeah, I really love what you shared. And before we do forget, thank you for bringing up Keith. I really do miss him and the impact he brought into the world. He played a huge role, and it was really sad when we heard the news and everything. But yeah. Well, thank you very much, Chris, for joining us on this amazing journey. And thank you everyone who's been listening to this amazing podcast of the Bold Shift Club, where we are coming together to allow you to make a shift. I know this is not the energetic tone I would have across all the other episodes, because this is actually a very emotional episode for us, especially for me. And I really hope that you found it of value and have found something or the other that inspires you to make a particular shift in your journey, in your career, with your mindset, something that was holding you back. You felt that you couldn't do it. And hopefully through this, you found some sort of epiphany that allows you to just slightly look at things in a different manner, make that dent that allows the rest of the light and the bold shift to come forward to you. Thank you so much for joining us, Chris. If you have any last words, we'd love to hear that.
No, thank you very much. I enjoyed the tone and intentionality behind your questions and your responses to what we're talking about. It was a very different type of podcast, and I really enjoyed it for that reason.
It was really great to have you around, Chris. And hopefully everybody around here do check out Chris. I know most of the people across the globe do know him, but if you haven't already, Chris is an amazing person. And everything you check out of here is going to leave you with a value, with a perception of things in a different manner, especially if you're a creative or a designer. So with that, thank you once again, Chris.
Thank you.